Hi, Kate here with another video. Hope everyone's doing well. Again, if you enjoy my content, please like and subscribe. Helps me build the channel. I'm not making money from this, but I'm working to build the channel. I'm up to 110 subscribers, and I appreciate everyone who has subscribed and shown support of my sometimes controversial views on the left. Okay, today I'm going to talk about some Facebook drama. Last week or a couple of days ago, I almost either deleted or deactivated my Facebook account. The reason why I did not deactivate it is because I couldn't figure out how to. My idea was actually, don't tell Mark Zuckerberg this, but I have several small sock puppet accounts, which I kept in case my main account got blocked or deleted or something. And it's a good idea to do this with Facebook censorship. So anyway, what I want to do is deactivate my main account, not delete it right away, but deactivate it and then rebuild, have maybe a smaller, like 20 or so friends, 20 or 30 or so friends, people I personally know or some connection with. But I'm also in the process of I'm now like persona non grata in Leftbook. I'll tell you the whole sordid story. Okay, I've been on Facebook since 2007. I actually have 1,995 subscribers. I don't know how that happened, or friends on Facebook. I don't know how that, I wish I had that many subscribers on my YouTube channel. I have 1995 friends, quote, friends on Facebook. I don't know how that happened. Basically, I just keep accepting a Facebook friend request. Usually if someone has a fair number of mutuals, I'll accept them. I don't accept people with no mutuals. There are tons of scams. Anyway, I got on Facebook around and on 2007, the advice of a coworker who thought maybe it would be good for dating and meeting people. I didn't meet anyone to date through Facebook, but I still had fun on it. When I was first year, a couple of years, I was on Facebook. I didn't do much with it, actually. I kind of looked down on Facebook. I thought it was kind of frivolous and superficial. So one job I had at the time in the Boston area, bunch of guys, people were on it. There's a group of people who, nice people, but they like to party a lot. They smoked a lot of weed, nothing wrong with that. And they talked trash. And they were really big on Facebook. And I kind of thought, it's kind of superficial and frivolous. I'm not really into pop culture. I don't really care what these people are into. But, I got on Facebook. And some year or two, I didn't really do much with it, but a couple of years later, I got on what's called Leftbook. Now, first, I was on the around 2009, 2010 or so. I was on the Rev Left forum. It's defunct now, and I got on kind of later. I don't know how long it was up, but I was on the Rev Left forum. It was kind of a forum for leftists, talk about leftist politics. It was interesting. I learned a lot from really intelligent people there. There was also a lot of nastiness and sectarianism and stuff. It was kind of, anyway, and I was on it on and off like 2009, 2010 for a time. And then it goes on from later 2011 to maybe 2013, 14, now 2000, whenever, I'm not sure when it ended. Well, Leftbook folded and there's a lot of drama, which I got caught up in a bit, but there was a lot of drama and Leftbook folded. A lot of those people went over to Facebook. Yeah, I was in a socialist alternative at the time. I was very active in the Boston area and other places, and then I was an at-large member for quite a while. Times I was really involved in activism. I didn't spend as much time online. This online activity gave me a chance to contact and network with people on the left if I wasn't geographically nearby, and had some uses. It has some uses, doesn't replace our actual activism. So anyway, the Rev Left forum folded. I went back to Facebook. I started spending more time on Facebook. And it got to be what they call Leftbook, like socialist organizations. If you're in the US or English-speaking countries, if you're in a socialist organization, everybody's on Facebook. You get to be Facebook friends with all your comrades. And then sooner or later, you'll pick up other people from other organizations who are on Facebook, and they network, and it's sort of combined together to form this community, generally called Leftbook. I'm finding out Leftbook is actually vast. I'm in one small Trotskyist or Trotskyist friendly section of Leftbook. I have growing number of non-Trotskyist friends, Marxist-Leninists. Their foreign policies I largely agree with, actually. But I'm in one section of Facebook, and it does provide a community. It did for quite a couple of years. Provide a community. So I got active on it, from between, I don't know, 2011 or 2012 or so. Probably the peak of it was like 2014 to 2016, 17 or so. And then I'm still on it now. And it's a community of leftists from around the US and around the world, mostly English-speaking world, but there are a fair number of people from Latin America, Germany, other places as well. And it provided a community, like you see someone in real socialist in real life. Hey, did you say, hear what Chris said on Facebook the other day? It's kind of a shared community. It's partly ridiculous, but partly good. It mixed feelings about it. There's always a fair amount of drama. Now, I had some unconventional opinions on it, and I noticed the narratives. There's a consensus opinion. Not everybody believes in this, but there are like Facebook groups, Leftbook groups. One big one, the Marxist discussion group. It was originally a Facebook group. It was originally started for the Marxist Internet Archive, started by David Walters, which is a really good project, really important project. Marxist writings and recordings are online, vast archive that they've been working on for 15 years or so. And the Marxist Internet discussion group was a Facebook group connected to it, but then it was turned into a general Marxist group. And there's a smaller group specifically for the Marxist archive. Okay, that's one. There are a bunch of Trotskyist groups elsewhere. There are some Marxist-Leninist Facebook groups. And like everyone kind of knows each other in these groups. They're all, one person might be in 3 groups, and you kind of recognize each other. So there's aspects of a community, which is good in some ways. Anyway, I did notice under Trump, a lot of narratives started changing or being reinforced, especially among liberals, but also affected people on the more radical left. There's a whole Russiagate thing happening with liberals, Russia. And liberals had this odd, I no way support Trump, but there was really Trump derangement syndrome. Liberals and some people on the more radical left had this over-exaggerated fear and hatred of Trump, like fixation on Trump. I didn't like Trump. I actually thought Bush was worse, but Trump didn't provide any answers either. George Bush was actually far worse, did more damage. Not that I like Trump, but so if you're on like a leftist, if you debate liberals during that time, during the Trump administration, and you attack Democrats from the left, oh, you get it. You're a Russian bot, a Russian asset. You're a Russian bot. Now, in my case, I actually was a Russian bot. Not really. My Facebook account, I have the name Caitlin Yulianov, which is not my real name. It's Kate Fry. I've used a couple of online names over the years. And I first originally used my real name on Facebook. Then I actually had my hometown is Dhaka, Bangladesh. Went back in 2007, 2008. So I actually had people from a high school in Dhaka, the capital of Bangladesh, sending me friend requests. I felt a little awkward. Like I don't look Bangladeshi. I felt a little odd. So I changed. Then a couple of years later, for job hunting, someone suggested I change my name. So I put Caitlin Yulianov, and I put, Vladivostok, Russia. Now, I've lived in Russia, actually. I've never been to Vladivostok, but I have lived in Moscow, Russia for almost 3 years. But I've never been to Vladivostok. So as my Facebook profile says Caitlin Yulianov. Lenin's name, correct Russian, should be Yulianovna, but Caitlin Yulianov from Vladivostok. Okay, and if you scroll down my feed, I mean, it's pretty obvious it doesn't have Russian content. It's in English, and it has stuff going on in New England. I live in outside Portland, Maine. Okay, so debating liberals. If you criticize the Democrats too hard from the left, you'll get attacked for being a Russian bot. Right? All leftists do. In my case, of course, says I'm a Russian bot, so a lot of people I debate, we found the Russian. So I had this Facebook friend. Oh, I don't know when, maybe you got to be friends with him until 2014 or so. Steve Ward. He was a journalist from Atlanta, Georgia. Seemed like a genuinely nice guy. I added him as a friend because, I don't remember how I got to be Facebook friends with him, but I have thoughts of going into some type of journalism myself. It's really hard to break into. One of my ideas for this YouTube channel. So it's good to have some contacts, good to have a contact. Steve Ward was not by any means a leftist. He was a mainstream liberal. He quickly, he supported the Democratic Party. I don't know who he worked for, what type of journalism he did. He was the type of guy who watched CNN, believe everything they said. He's a type of mainstream liberal. Okay, well, when Trump got in, his posts were entirely making fun of Trump, or he'd share memes. He posts fairly often, like 7 or 8 times a day. And he's like a middle-aged guy, not a young kid. He posts like pretty often, share memes mocking Trump or mocking Trump voters. Okay, sure, I don't like Trump. Okay, sure. But, his kind of posts didn't have any insight to them. Trump's an idiot. Trump's like, okay, but didn't have any deeper analysis. And his posts got kind of annoying. Well, I didn't say much, but, I look forward to his posts, but they were kind of annoying and very predictable. Okay, so when 2020 election approached, my nose is itchy. When the 2020 election approached, I think, if I remember, Steve Buttigieg was the second guy to declare. And, they're New York, we came out New York Times or Washington Post, about some puff piece articles on him. Liberals were swooning over him. Liberals loved him. And Steve Ward started this thread about, talking about Buttigieg. He's my guy. And the thread got to be about 60 or 70 comments. It was a really big thread with a couple of sub-threads. And people were basically swooning over Pete Buttigieg, mainly because he's openly gay. He's young, he's cute looking, he looks like a chipmunk with those jaws, and he's like openly gay. So liberals were swooning over him, exactly what they wanted. There was no examination of his policy, which he didn't talk about, or what he really stood for, or his background. He was just, he's my guy, Steve, he's my guy. So I criticized him, very respectfully. I said, we don't know much about him. We do know some stuff about him. I work for a firm, McKinsey Associates, I believe. Some of his background has been murky. He's believed to have intelligence ties. He worked at Bagram Air Base in Iraq, which is known for torture. We don't know exactly what's going on. And I was really attacked. They slammed into people, not Steve, but people, his friends on this thread really slammed into me. You're a Russian bot. You're a bot. Steve defended me. He said, no, I've known you. I've chatted with Steve. Earlier, I chatted with him occasionally. So he defended me in it. I've known Caitlin. Caitlin's not a Russian. Caitlin's cool. Caitlin's okay. So I guess about a couple months later, there was a similar thread, which Steve started. And, Steve actually, he was a blue check mark Democrat. He would say very often stuff like, we got to get rid of Trump. Trump's dangerous. If you are not voting for a Democrat to get rid of Trump, that's the only way we can get rid of Trump. If you say you're not going to vote for a Democrat to get rid of Trump, I'm going to block you. And in the meantime, my Facebook activity, I was posting a lot of stuff criticizing the Democrats, and Steve didn't say anything or didn't block me, just kind of ignored it. So he started the second thread. I forget, it was about the Democratic candidates, which ones you like, which ones you don't like. He was maybe distancing himself a little from Buttigieg, but he was obviously going to vote for a Democrat. And I criticized the Democratic Party. I said, very nice. I said, they're not going to fight for the progressive ideals that we want, and maybe we need to build a third party. I was diplomatic about saying this. The Democrats are going to stab us in the back every single time. We got to think of political independence for working people. Oh, good. There was another big pile on, particularly these liberals, slamming me as a Russian bot. And of course, it says on my Facebook profile, I'm from Vladivostok, even though I've never been there. But another pile-on. This time, Steve joined in the pile-on. He liked a bunch of threads with a bunch of posts which were making fun of me, a bunch of comments. And Steve joined in the pile-on. And I guess about a week later, he blocked me. I noticed I didn't see his frequent posts. His posts were annoying, but he kind of, it was a fixture on Facebook for me. I didn't see his posts anymore, and I looked him up. I didn't see him. He blocked me. I felt a little bad because of someone I chatted with, but okay, his posts were not very interesting. I don't think there was much chance I ever would have met him in real life anyway. So okay, sayonara, Steve. Okay, so that was like a foretaste of what came a little bit later. My time on Leftbook, I would sometimes debating and often block hardcore TERFs. I'm trans, someone who's like a hardcore anti-transgender. And if I'm okay if someone's a soft TERF. I'm not gonna immediately block or cancel someone for serving. I don't do that. I think as long as it's possible, try to debate, try to discuss with people. But if someone is really aggressively anti-trans, then I'm gonna, like, there was this guy, Kevin Avedon, who was an activist, journalist. I think it was with the British SWP, but he left. He was part of he played a crappy political role in Britain with the Respect Coalition. Anyway, he was a commentator on Greece. He wrote a book about Syriza. And I'd follow him like around the time of the Greek elections. It was 2015, I believe. I'd follow him. And he was kind of interesting, but then he got on this really aggressive turf kick, got promote more and more making fun of trans people. And I debated him a little bit, then fuck it. I can't, I blocked him. I mean, and his take on Syriza was the radical party in Greece, who was terrible. Like, he supported Syriza right to the very end. Syriza, they got as a radical party, they got in power, and then they capitulated to the European Union, to the Troika, to Angela Merkel, whatever. They capitulated. The people who voted to leave the EU, to renounce the horrible debt, and he just went belly up. And Kevin Avedon was supporting right to the range. So he had crappy politics. He was kind of an interesting guy, but crappy politics. And there are a few other people like that. I've noticed some people who are really good anti-imperialists, but are socially really bad. Sometimes homophobic, sometimes anti-trans. I block people for anti-Semitism. There are a couple people who had these weird Khazar conspiracy theories about the Jews. I would try to debate people a little bit, then I'd block them. That was really annoying. I had a few other people. I had occasionally some fights with people who were like on the edges of the left, but for the most part, it was kind of fun being on Leftbook. I was always kind of divided whether to keep it more social or more political or both. I mean, kind of did both. I'd post photos of my dogs and pictures of my dogs and things I've done throughout the day or stuff. But I'd also share articles and talk about politics. And I wasn't, until recently, I wasn't really out of the norm of Leftbook. Well, as I said, the Trump era changed things somewhat. There was, I mentioned Steve Warren, liberals' attitude came to affect a fair number of people on the more radical left. There's a guy, John Riemann, who I originally liked. He was one of the early members of Socialist Alternative. He was given the boot. He did that like a jerk, dogmatic and bullying in some ways. He was given the boot. I never personally met him. Then he got weird. I kind of respected him in a way. I liked his take on Bernie Sanders. He didn't support voting for Sanders and the direction Socialist Alternative was taking. He was following it very closely. And I'd interact with him. I chatted with him a few times around the time. When I chat with people, I got to first tell them, no, I'm not Russian. People send me friend requests thinking I'm Russian. I'm not. But okay, anyway. This John Riemann got increasingly weird. He believed in Russiagate, and he got Trump derangement syndrome very clearly. He believed in Russiagate. His politics got really, really bad, and he eventually blocked me. So anyway, that was like a foretaste. Really, the big thing came. A turning point was the Capitol riot, January 6th. I mentioned earlier videos. I talked about my opinions of this. First thing, as I said, the Capitol Police made something like 6 requests. It was known weeks in advance. Trump's followers were going to have a big rally on the mall. It's routine, or so activist groups have this all the time, and marches on Washington all the time. And so it was known like 6 weeks in advance that Trump people were going to have a big rally on the mall and a march to the Capitol. Okay, so 6 requests for backup on the part of the Capitol Police were turned down either by Congress or by the Pentagon. Literally the day before it happened, Muriel Bowser, the mayor of Washington, nixed additional police support. In fact, there was a rally, I believe 2 days earlier. It was a Julian Assange solidarity rally combined with Medicare for All rally, like 2 days before. And a number of leftists, independent leftists and libertarian journalists were there to cover it. And they all said, the police presence there was much, much larger than it was for the Trump rally 2 days later. Also, a few things. He literally, it's a YouTube video. The Capitol Police literally let the protesters onto the Capitol grounds. The back door was unlocked. There's so many weird things. We know these right-wing groups are very heavily infiltrated by the feds. We know, like the Oath Keepers, a right-wing kind of fascist group, literally are state security. They recruit from cops, from the military. They literally are state security. But as Glen Greenwald article very recently is that the FBI was heavily infiltrated. And also the Capitol area itself, I mean, it's one of the most heavily surveilled places on the planet. I mean, the feds know everything that's going to happen. Pin can't drop without the feds knowing about it. So also backtrack a bit. There was the plot to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, who got to be a flashpoint with the COVID lockdown. She got to be a flashpoint. There were protests against her. And there's a kidnapping plot to kidnap her. It turned out the person who ran this plot was literally paid, in charge of this plot, was paid $30,000 by the FBI. More so, Glen Greenwald has an amazing article. The FBI created the entire thing. It sounded weird when it happened. The FBI cooked up the entire plot. There was no plot to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer. The FBI made up the whole thing. Kind of complicated, but great Glen Greenwald articles. I'll look on his Substack. And that's why liberals hate Glen Greenwald. He punctures their narratives. So, what's the first thing that happened after the people were freaking out? Oh, it's an insurrection. NPR still calls it the insurrection. Oh, we're going to have a fascist takeover. Oh, my God. Oh, it was like people were comparing it to the beer hall putsch in Germany, not pre-Nazi Germany, which it was total nonsense. I'll be blunt. It was set up. The plot to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer was set up. And the Capitol thing was set. Trump supporters walked into a trap. Now, I in no way support Trump. I don't support the MAGA crowd. Their politics are not my politics. There's some honest, well-meaning people who are drawn into this, who realize the corruption, but they're socially conservative in many ways. They have false illusions in Trump. No way the right wing is not going to provide any answers, but neither other Democrats or the security state. Right now, we have a situation where the Democrats and their aligned media and the security state is one big thing. I think that's the main danger we're facing. So I made a video. So anyway, this Capitol riot, people seemed to be a dividing line in much of the left. It forced contradictions which were occurring, building up earlier, but so many people were freaking out about this on Leftbook. Ian Scott Horse, who I interviewed, and I thought he was a nice guy. He had a fight with him. He unfriended me. He actually seriously was terrified it was going to be a fascist takeover. He was terrified. Literally posted about this. He was terrified. Other people were too. I disagreed with this whole thing. I thought it's no big deal. I mean, it's a big deal, but it's not. The media is using this. Like, what's the first thing that happened after the Capitol riot? AOC was loudly calling for censorship. She was talking about how she was traumatized and linked it with a sexual assault she had been through experience, and how traumatizing was she, many people pointed out, AOC was not even in the same freaking building. I can empathize with someone being through, a horrible situation, but let's put things in perspective. So she was being built up as a big martyr. She was calling for censorship. And it's going to be used against the left. And so many people on Facebook were cheering this on. Like almost everybody was, like liberals especially, not really leftists, but liberals were bragging about how they're going to turn in their family members. Oh, my uncle was there. I'm going to turn, if I had a relative there, I'd turn him in. Like, this was scary. This is police state shit. There's people openly bragging how they're going to inform on each other. And with the illusion that they're fighting fascism. Like, guess what? This is fascism. Okay, so I made a video back in March, and I mentioned the Capitol riot. I mentioned, I didn't express myself as well as I could. I mentioned the possibility that maybe the Trump supporters were right. That is, maybe Trump actually was cheated. Now, that was the ultimate heresy. Now, it's a crazy QAnon conspiracy theory. Well, what I based this on was the Electoral College votes, which had boiled down to Biden beat Trump by 43,000 votes in 3 states. 2 of those states use consortium, I think it's consortium, use Dominion oh, this is proprietary software. We don't know what goes on inside. Now, I'm aware it was thrown out by the courts. I'm fully aware of that. But what does that mean? Do you have that much faith in bourgeois legality? It was very obvious the ruling class did not want Trump real. They did not want Trump. He was very disturbing to them. There was this something called the Transition Integrity Project at Harvard, I believe in 2019. It was a real thing. It's not a conspiracy theory. The movers and shakers in the political world, John Podesta, one of the Clintons' main operatives, was there, a bunch of other people. He's from both sides of the aisle, but the movers and shakers in the political world were there, and it was kind of called to prevent if Trump pulled any funny business, like there were recurring late Trump administration and recurring coup fears. Like, okay, the Russiagate narrative fell apart and towards like 2019, it just petered out. The people who perpetuated this conspiracy theory never admitted they were wrong. It just kind of sputtered out. Then Trump is the next Hitler. We'll replace that. Trump, Hitler, Trump. He had articles connecting Trump with Hitler somehow or other. And then they were, oh my God, Trump's going to pull a coup. Trump did admittedly shoot his mouth off. Trump was a complete and utter buffoon. Seriously, he was a buffoon. He has the attention span of a goldfish. He was an extremely weak figure. He's absolutely, utterly incapable of any long-term planning, any pulling a coup. And there's no evidence he was building up a movement. He did make fascistic appeals, but these militias were massively exaggerated by the media. You know, they get no publicity. Look where they are today under Biden. You don't hear about them. You hear about them all, the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, the 3%. You hear them all the time under Trump. Now, you don't hear about them under Biden. They're gone. They're gone from public consciousness. Okay, so Trump would shoot off his mouth, but I compared Trump to like a guy drunk at a bar at 3 a.m., loudly complaining about how his ex-wife or whatever, ex-girlfriend cheated on him, yelling. You know, that's the mentality of Trump. He doesn't, you know, and, you know, the COVID crisis, the height of COVID last year, like March, April, May, would have been the ideal time for Trump to try a power grab. Seriously, to centralize power. He didn't. He did the exact opposite. He let power devolve to the states. He did nothing. People were openly talking about the U.S. as a failed state. You know, there were like regional compacts, as Northeast states would form regional compacts to coordinate activities versus the inactivity of the federal government. You know, New England had a it looked like a post-apocalyptic science fiction scenario, like after the U.S. breaks up, like the New England Federation will make a trade deal with the Northern Midwest Commonwealth, you know, whatever, like some post-apocalyptic science fiction scenario. I jokingly posted on Facebook, hey, you know, a really good way of these states to coordinate their relief activities is why don't they get together and form a central government? You know, it was a joke. So Trump didn't do shit. He let power devolve to the states. He never seemed like he was really interested in becoming a dictator or seizing power, and he never had any power base. He did not have military, anytime did not have military background, no military backing. When he made his famous weird Black Lives Matter protest last summer, and he made the famous speech in Lafayette Square, the military slapped him down hard. No, dude, you're not gonna do this. Okay, so I think it's just absurd thinking that Trump was the January 6th was a coup attempt. It's completely absurd. I think they were maneuvered. Trump and his supporters were maneuvered into that. That's exactly what they wanted to happen, whip up this fear. Oh my God, we're going to have a fascist takeover. Sells newspapers. Also, provides the pretext for ramping up the security state. Ironically, it's against fascist and white supremacists, but it's really pushing essentially a white supremacist fascist agenda, and I'll build my case. So I made this video. I said, you know, maybe Trump was right. I was outraged. Someone pointed this out. They quoted me as saying I'm agnostic as to whether Trump as a Biden actually won, and it's not exactly what I said, but okay. And it was an uproar, like big pile-on. I'm sorry. I posted this on the Marxist discussion group. And someone, which is the center of this like shitlib mentality, and someone called me out saying, you know, it's an absurd QAnon theory, and it's a massive pile-on. Like I was up to 70 people were commenting or were commenting on my post, and then I had defended myself. Went on over 2 nights, and I left at 70 people. I think it got up to 110 comments. Like I'm not into this. I can't spend like I made my case. I made my point. I'm not going to spend like emotional energy involved in this shit. I got other things to do in the evening, more interesting things to do. I made my point. As I said, I think it is very possible Trump was cheated at re-election. Not that I support Trump. Biden beat Trump by 43,000 votes in 3 states. 2 of those states used Dominion proprietary software. It was thrown out by the courts, but it was very evident the ruling class did not want Trump, wanted Trump out no matter what. It's not, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole. Don't even really care that much. It's not, I don't even care, but I think it's useful to point this out. And I made my case more clear in a few later videos, but uproar. So then I was like, that was a big uproar. People like Bill Green, who's one of the admins of it. I know I interviewed him. I used to like him. He blocked me recently, but I used to like him. He was one of these people who, it's a beer hall push, it's a rehearsal for a fascist takeover. I just didn't see that. But that was like a foretaste of the mentality, the narrative. Like even people on the radical left are tacitly supporting the security state. Okay, so that was one thing that happened. Then there was this guy I was a Facebook friend with a guy named Al Benson, who was a fairly well-known figure on my section of Leftbook, famous figure. I believe he was in his late 60s. He was a big guy, he was a bodybuilder, he used to work out, lived in LA. He retired out of Time Warner, I believe, and he had been in the Spartacus League when he was younger. He was not in an organization at the time I knew him, but he was in the Sparts. Now, the Spartacus League, if you spent any time around the radical left, at least pre-COVID, you would have come across the Spartacus League. They often usually called the Sparts, although they hate that term. They were a fixture. They're supposedly an Orthodox Trotskyist group. They split from the Socialist Workers' Party, which was that Trotskyist group, I believe, in 1965. The Spartacus League, I'll call them the Spartacus League, although everybody calls them the Sparts. They're known to be, they basically extremely dogmatic, extremely sectarian, and they heckle people at leftist meetings. That's what they're famous for. They'll go to like a leftist meeting or convention or conference, and they'll heckle, so you're a bunch of pseudo-leftist class collaborators. And they don't convince anybody. Their methodology is to orient towards the left and get a few people like ones or twos, or recruit people by ones or twos, and they orient towards what they call ostensibly revolutionary groups or ostensibly revolutionary organizations, and show them up and whatever. It doesn't work. Most people think they're batshit crazy. They come off as deranged, which they are. They're kind of a cult. I've been around them. I've been in their circles at times. I've been around them. Let me just delete this here. So, I've been around them, and most people on the left don't. No one down the left really takes them seriously. So they've had a few splits, who are in their same tradition, what you might call Spartacoid, although people in that milieu kind of probably hate that term, but Spartacoid groups. There's the IG, Internationalist group, which split in the late 1997, I think, over a miners union in Mexico and Brazil, as far as I remember. Actually, 4 people, Jan Norton, Sandro John, and their wives, basically, were connected with their newspaper. They left, and they built up a rival organization, which is like the tradition, the Spartacus tradition, but they supposedly got rid of the corruption or the backsliding of the original parent group. And these two groups have a weird obsession with one another. Particularly the Sparts are obsessed with the IG. I was at Left Forum, I think it was 2017, 2018. It was fucking batshit crazy. I'd go to like a IG. They both had the Sparts had this intense rage against the IG. So they had these plans to raid their meetings and walk in heckle. It was weird drama, which would take a while to explain. But these people thought I came away with these people are deranged. So the Sparts are obsessed with the IG. The IG, to some extent, with the Sparts, not quite as much. And to their credit, the IG, the internationalist group, is actually involved in activism. The Sparts aren't. They're almost so. I guess they go to demos or stuff. I don't really know what they do, but they're mainly oriented towards the left. Towards picking off people from these newer wavering members from these other groups. Well, the IG, to their credit, they actually are organizing and involved in stuff. I don't like either group. I was somewhat close to the IG, to the internationalist group for a time, bit complicated, some personal stuff. I was in socialist alternative for about 10 years. I was on the left and I had the opposition, and friends of mine in another state in New Hampshire who left, they organized a group, organized a branch, socialist alternative branch in New Hampshire. We were also on the left opposition. They left socialist alternative, or SALT, as everyone calls it, before I did. And I did stuff with them. I would have liked it if they stayed independent. I would have helped them build an organization, build like a New England wide org. I would have been an enthusiastic supporter. And I knew they were kind of sympathetic to both the Sparks and the IG. And I kind of would have been okay if they were like IG adjacent, but they made the decision to join the IG. They were like candidates and they finally joined it. And I was kind of on the periphery. I went to IG events, and I wasn't like a prospective member exactly. The IG, it's very difficult to join them. They don't, like socialist alternative, they sign anybody up. They really anxious. I mean, if you agree with their politics, they'll have discussion meetings, they'll have meetings with you, but they're anxious to get people to join. The IG is very reluctant. It's like, we'll call you, don't call us, we'll call you. So I was kind of on the periphery. I drive like 2 hours and I do stuff with them. I was on the periphery. Even I would have liked if my friends in New Hampshire stayed independent and tried to build an organization, but I was on the periphery. Well, what I did a no-no. The IG, we had this memorial, a couple friends and people I really like, had this memorial for a revolutionary Antoinette Konikow. I made an earlier video about her. She was a founding member of both the Socialist Party of Eugene Debs, the Communist Party, and the American Trotskyist movement, founding member of all these three movements. And I made a earlier video about her 7 or 8 months ago. I don't remember, if you can look it up. And she was an sort of neglected figure. Well, I think about 2016, 2017, the Sparks had a memorial celebration for her, and which is really nice. And they worked to revive her reputation, which is a good thing to do. So the IG picked up from that, and we put on a thing in the Boston area. Went to the Workers' Circle Jewish Cemetery outside Boston, Brighton, I believe. It was really interesting. I read a little speech, and everyone else did. Okay, so I did a no-no. A little while after that, I wrote an article on Antoinette Konikow for Left Voice, which is a different Trotskyist organization, mostly based in New York. I wrote an article on her. I thought it was a really good article. I used some of my materials when I did research for the speech with the IG people. Okay, well, that didn't go over very well with the IG. Again, I was not a member of the IG. I'm not a member of Left Voice. Left Voice isn't really a party. They're sort of a writing publishing collective. And I'm unclear what they want to do, but they mainly get lots and lots of people who are not members, lots of people to write articles for them. And I've written about 8 or 9 articles from them over the last couple of years. So I wrote an article on Antoinette Konikow, and the IG people were a little upset at me. It didn't go over too well. Like, I was not a member of the IG, but I was writing for a rival socialist organization. And I kind of realized it. They felt they couldn't trust me. And I understand it. I kind of sort of felt bad. But the IG, I was never going to join the IG. They require like 12% membership dues, and they're very, very rigid. Like you have to, like China, you have to exactly believe their take on everything. It's very rigid. I didn't feel great about that. I didn't really agree with a lot of their politics. But anyway, so I kind of sensed I was driving fairly between 2 and 3 hours to do stuff with them, with this group. And they eventually, my friends in New Hampshire joined the IG, and I sort of think I'd actually join it, but I could be like on the periphery, or I join, like what they call a transitional group, which might not be a full member, but outside support. I was toying with that idea for a while, but then it became apparent. It's kind of subtle, but they didn't really want me around. I went to a demo, a market basket strike in the Boston area. They made clear they didn't really want me there. So they were very nice, but it's kind of subtle. I was sort of disinvited from a party at Left Voice, as a Left Forum, and it was 2018, I believe. So I was hanging out with a group of them, and then they were going on to a private party somewhere, and somebody took me aside, like, hey, Is this from when people were close to the organization? Okay, now I was close to the organization for quite a while before other people were, but okay. No, okay, so I kind of was saying, no, okay, whatever. I realistically wasn't going to join them anyway. I sort of felt bad. So that's some of the background. And they're part IG. There's a Spartacus League, the IG. There are other groups. There's the IBT, International Bolshevik Tendency. They were made of individual members who left the Sparts and they formed this group later. They recently had a split, then the IBT and the BT. And I think these groups are like literally 6 or 7. The IG is 60 people. The IBT or whatever the fuck it is, like 7 or 8 or 9 people, or sometimes 3 or 4 people. And this group, Revolutionary Regroupment, RR, which is another group. And there are a few other groupsicles which split from this milieu. They're all like in the broader Spartacoid milieu. Okay. I don't know. Anyway, so it's Al Benson. I mentioned this background. This guy, Al Benson, was a Facebook friend. I chatted with him, and he seemed like a genuinely nice guy. He had been on the Spartacus League SL when he was younger, and he started this Facebook group. I know he wanted to join the IG, but they wouldn't. He talked to it. They wouldn't let him. This guy, Fred Bergen, who's an IG member. He was in Philly. I met him. He's a hothead and kind of psycho case. He would heckle meetings all the time. I met him close up, and he seemed like a really nice guy when you get him face to face, but in a crowd he heckles people. Anyway, apparently Fred Bergen almost he was on the Rev Left forum. He was expelled for a bunch of different times. He kept coming back on sock puppet accounts. So I think they moved Fred Bergen to Portland, Oregon, because he was a hothead, kept getting in fights with people. So anyway, Al Benson had a meeting, I guess, with Fred Bergen. They didn't get along, and I guess largely why Al did not join the IG. I think he kind of wanted to at one point. So then Al started this Facebook group. It was called, James P. Cannon Group for Reforging Trotskyism, or something like that. I kind of forget the exact name. And I think his goal was to either get the Sparts and the IG to reunite, or to start his own. I think he was toying with the idea of starting his own organization for a time. Okay. Anyway, he asked me to be an admin. He chatted with me, apparently liked me. He knew I was on the periphery of the IG, but I wasn't a member. So he thought he'd ask me to be an admin because I'm not in an org. He thought I was part of his milieu, but I was in an organization. So I was like the first admin of this group, and then a bunch of other people joined. And I didn't really do much as an admin. I think my heart really wasn't in it in some ways. So anyway, there was some drama. What happened is after it was made clear that I wasn't going to be really accepted by the IG, they didn't even want me in the periphery. And I'm not entirely sure what went on there, but they didn't want me around. I kind of posted something. I was still an admin of this James P. Cannon Facebook group. I posted something about China, that maybe what is China? Is China really really capitalist? And that went against his like form of state-directed capitalism, which is kind of my current thinking. That went against their norm. That went the party line of that whole tradition is that China is a deformed worker state. And they're super dogmatic about it. The whole Facebook, this James P. Cannon Club, was super dogmatic about everything. The purpose of it was to promulgate the ideas of the broad Spartacoid tradition, which is super rigid, super dogmatic, and it's weird, cult-like in some ways. So anyway, I posted this thing. It was kind of apparent. Someone else politely suggested, that I was removed from being an admin. I didn't do anything as admin anyway. So, okay, I felt a little bad. Okay, whatever. So I was booted. I was still a member of this group, but I wasn't the admin team, which is just as well, because I really did not align with their politics. Okay, so I didn't really pay too much attention to this group or to Al or anyone else quite a while later. Al did tell me he's in very poor health. He was a gay man. He had been through the HIV crisis in the Bay Area in the 80s. He was living in LA now, and he was retired. He's not sure what he was doing. He spent a lot of time on Facebook, and he was writing and stuff. He was a nice guy, but a very dogmatic thinker. Okay, so after I had this pile-on the Marxist discussion group that suggested that maybe Trump's supporters are right, that maybe actually was cheated, which was a shitstorm. It was heresy, ultimate heresy. I'm a bit surprised I wasn't expelled from the Marxist discussion group for even suggesting that. I still think I'm basically right, but okay. Al he was on this thread, but he stayed out of it. He was kind of vaguely supportive of me, actually. He stayed out of it. So a couple weeks later, I got in this big fight with Al. A couple weeks later, unrelated. Basically, I posted something about the Kamala Harris owed her political career to her relationship with Willie Brown, who was chairman of the Assembly, very powerful guy in California politics for a long time. And that's how she started her political career. I emphasized that I wasn't slut shaming Kamala Harris. I mean, it's totally okay to have a relationship with an older man, even okay to get some mentoring. Yeah, it's fairly common. Nothing at all wrong with it, but there is a lot wrong if he uses to oppress other people, which Kamala Harris certainly did. She ruined the lives of thousands of African Americans. So I mentioned this, and big reaction against this. Al got a little upset. They got really upset. A few other people did too. Don't ever say this about Kamala Harris and Willie Brown. Don't ever say this. Like, I was kind of, why? I mean, she's a Democrat. The Democrats are the main enemy. She's a Democrat. She's their anti-worker. They're providing false. They're blocking development of a third party. They're blocking development of working class struggle. There's nothing wrong with calling them out. And yeah, I posted something else. I was a little drunk, and I was kind of punch happy, a little rattled after my previous fight on not fight, but whatever it was, pile on the Marxist discussion group. I said to myself, I really had to hear with this Facebook Leftbook dogmatism. And now I personally liked him, but I was kind of upset. So I posted something else. I doubled down and said, yeah, I emphasized that I'm not slut shaming Kamala Harris. There's nothing wrong with having her relationship with Willie Brown, but there was a lot wrong with using it versus nepotism, using it to jumpstart a career in politics, which is something not available to most people, and her horrible role she played as Attorney General of California, really ruining the lives of many people, horrible anti-worker elitist. So I mentioned this, and then Al he got really upset. He posted in his James P. Cannon. Oh, by the way, a little while after I left this James P. Cannon Facebook group, Al moved more closer to the Spartacus League. I don't think he joined it, but he's officially a Spartan sympathizer. And he kicked out the other admins, or a bunch of other admins after I got in, who were in the IG or neutral or something, but he kicked them out. And the group kind of fell apart. Largely fell apart. It was a fixture. I mean, he was kind of he and the other admins were kind of dogmatic, but it was a fixture on the left, because people I was friends with elsewhere or on this group. It was a way station, a station of sorts. But Al got super dogmatic when he got more closely aligned with the Sparts, kicked everyone else out. The group kind of lost a lot of energy around that time. I didn't pay much attention to it, and it kind of was disintegrating at that point. But Al posted a screenshot after I made my comment about Kamala Harris. Al posted a screenshot where I said he blotted out my name, but he got, see these reactionary takes, see these, this is a horrible, whatever, if you're referring to me. So I posted this. I was a little drunk. I don't drink that much. Seriously, went to binge drinking when I was like teenager, early 20s, but I really seriously don't drink that much. And I had a bottle of wine. I was slightly buzzed, and I was just sick of this freaking Leftbook dogmatism. So I posted in this group, this is Spart cult crap. And I knew Al's mentality. He would take this as a mortal insult, and he blocked me. And it was back in February. I felt bad. Even though I didn't really agree with his politics in a lot of ways, and I thought I was dogmatic, and it was still a social level. He was kind of a fixture on Leftbook. I personally liked the guy, and I was toying with the idea of having someone else try to be an intermediary to get to be friends with Al again. And like, I'm really sorry, I was drunk when I posted that. I felt bad, although I don't think Al would unblock me or anything. I don't think he just doesn't have that mentality. Okay, so anyway, didn't really think a lot about it, but I think about a month ago, this is October, I think back in early September, I think it was, news came out that Al passed away. Al Benson died. I felt bad, but I expected it to happen. But okay, so Leftbook was was changing, getting a little odd. Al, by the way, a couple things which I really thought was repulsive after the Capitol riot. He was one of these biggest people. Say, oh, they're fascist, they're fascist. There were 3 people who were killed. Security guard died later on, kind of unrelated. 3 people who were killed. I was cheering them on, like Ashley Bobbitt, or one guy who died of a heart attack, and the woman who was crushed. I was cheering them on. Oh, freaking fascist, serves them right. I always thought that was disgusting, because 2 of the people who were killed I know of had been enthusiastic Obama supporters. One guy who had a heart attack, he's from Alabama. He had traveled to DC in 2008, when Obama 2008, when Obama got in. And people were disappointed. People thought Obama was going to be a transformed leader, but he wasn't. So these people moved to the right. Doesn't mean they're fascist or bad people, or this type of weird dogmatism that everyone who's conservative or is a fascist, the fash. It was everywhere. It was this mentality. It was growing after the Capitol riot, where the idea, it wasn't any real class analysis, but the idea we have a vast fascist takeover, vast fascist hordes and flyover country, and their point of taking over. And in reality, it was affecting more and more people. It seemed to be like people were terrified of any type of populism of the left or the right. Which takes me to another thing. I had a Facebook friend, Christine Eduardo. She was a lawyer. I've known her about 10 years online. I never met her in person. I had long-standing plans to meet her and hang out with her. She lives in the Bay Area. She's a lawyer, immigrant rights lawyer. I know she does a lot of work for homeless people. She seems like she does good stuff. She's trans, and she's gotten a lot of shit because she is trans. Her politics are very liberal. I mean, she regards herself as an anarchist. She was at the 3 battles of Berkeley, big protests against the alt-right, Milo Yiannopoulos, and some of those jokers. She was at those protests, and she was very proud of that fact. And she really saw herself fighting fascism, resisting the fash. She believed in Russiagate. The Russians got Trump elected. She hated Julian Assange. Julian Assange was working for the Russians. I think Christine meant well. She was kind of a shitlib, but she kind of meant well. And, I know I think she was a bit weirded out by some of my posts. So anyway, I posted, but we got along. I posted something about the mid-August. It was the Medicare for All rally. It was a movement across the country, Medicare for All movement rallies. I went to one in my area, and I wrote something about it. Then Christine said, well, yeah, no, I said, it doesn't seem to be getting a lot of support from the left. And Christine posted, yeah, no wonder. I mean, they're fascists. So they're supported by Jimmy Dore, who's once in alliance with the right wing. So she was bashing Jimmy Dore, and she thought this Medicare for All movement was fascist. Well, there were rumors that it was infiltrated. These rumors were nonsense, I thought. This guy, Matt Heimbeck, had been a speaker, I think, at a rally in Indianapolis. There were just screw-ups by local activists. I think the Democrats, like Kyle Kalinske and a few other people, were building up this narrative that this Medicare for All movement was infiltrated by fascists. I don't think they were. It served the needs of the Democrats to give that impression. And Christine was buying onto this narrative, and Christine hated Jimmy Dore. I actually liked Jimmy Dore. I politely disagreed with Christine, but a bunch of other people joined that thread, and they really got nasty towards Christine, who kind of agreed with me, but they were a bit nasty about it, and it's got to be fight broke out, and I felt bad. I deleted the thread like early the next day. I was just annoyed that, I think Jimmy Dore is actually the best asset the left has right now. He's got flaws. Not perfect. He does get some things, but I think he's doing some amazing work. A few others are building a small pole of attraction against this shit liberty security state. He's far more useful than most of the people in Leftbook. I'll say that. That's my take. So anyway, next day I posted something favorable about Jimmy Dore. I said Jimmy Dore is the Eugene Debs of our time. I was exaggerating, of course, not totally the case, but okay. Anyways, Christine blocked me. I felt bad because someone I had chatted with, I knew, I'm not just Facebook, but some other forums. I've known her for a while. I knew her from Yahoo group clubs, like back early 2000s. I chatted with her. I knew her for a while. I made plans to come out and meet her, but she blocked me. And okay, no, this is when politics comes to a head and the shit libs among the real radicals. There's a division, one growing division. Okay, now what happened a little while later? Okay, this is a really biggie here. I shared some of my ideas, my takes, my last two videos, the COVID crisis and the vaccines. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I strongly believe in vaccination science. It's obviously saved many lives. I think even the COVID crisis has saved many lives, but are there alternatives? And are there alternatives? Are there, like right now, the narrative is falling apart. We were told that the vaccines would end the pandemic and we could go back to normal once everyone's vaccinated. That's clearly not happening. And the mainstream is saying this. The mainstream is saying we'll need more than, we can't vaccinate our way out of this. I posted something like this maybe a couple months ago in a subthread and I was attacked. Now it's like the mainstream. New York Times is saying this. We can't vaccinate our way out of this. Not that this isn't a reason against the vaccines, but there are some of the vaccines do have health issues, myocarditis and the Pfizer vaccine. They do. I think there are some serious risks. And the only reason I'm saying this, the risk might be acceptable if there wasn't any alternative, but there are alternatives. Ivermectin. And this big, you're not allowed to talk about it. It's a big crushing. Now, it just annoyed me that the idea of ivermectin hit the media, I don't know, in July or August, and everyone, not even, but huge number of people started posting on Facebook, making fun of people who are taking horse dewormer, meme after meme, mocking these people, these Trump supporters in flyover country who don't believe in modern science, or QAnon idiots who don't believe in science are poisoning themselves, taking this horse dewormer. There was some article from the Missouri Department of Health that warning people that people are being hospitalized because taking ivermectin. Well, okay, the entire narrative was bullshit. Seriously. Rolling Stone magazine wrote an article supposedly that people in Colorado, gunshot wound victims were being turned away in Colorado because so many people were being hospitalized for ivermectin. Turns out not true at all. Story was completely made up. Seriously, there's two hospitals announced it didn't happen. And this article was important because it was picked up uncritically by so many other people in the media without doing even elementary fact checking, because that's the narrative they wanted. Okay, that's the exact narrative. So, and the idea of the Missouri Department of Health, the Missouri Department of Health also had an announcement, and I will post it, that no one in Missouri was hospitalized for ivermectin. Seriously, the people who developed, the team that developed ivermectin won a Nobel Prize for its use in humans in 2015. It's completely safe for its use in human beings. Seriously, no one's been hospitalized, no one's been poisoned for it. It's completely safe. In the Indian state of Uttar Pradesh, it has about 250 million people, stayed in central India. India had a horrific COVID problem and they dealt with it. And the media mentions that they dealt with it. It's plummeted. 2 weeks ago, Uttar Pradesh had like four people died of COVID. Death toll like months earlier was really ghastly high. They dealt with it, but the media suppresses the reason why they dealt with it. They're not using vaccines. They can't afford it. One thing, they're not using vaccines. Reason why Uttar Pradesh had some success is because they're giving ivermectin to people, handing it house to house. They have a massive ivermectin campaign. There was a clinical trial with at least 7,000 meta trial of clinical trials, meta-analysis of 63 clinical trials involving 7,000 people, which showed ivermectin is safe and very effective in fighting COVID. That's the only reason I'm mentioning this. Otherwise, and I think they're, okay, so I just was becoming increasingly annoyed. There were pile-ons. People were posting these memes, making fun of people who do their own research. There's this one meme of a young woman sitting on a toilet, looking at a YouTube video on her phone, saying she does her own research. She thinks she knows more than all the doctors combined, all the medical experts. This was incredibly demeaning, anti-worker. And it just fit the shitlib narrative that, well, we have to get everyone vaccinated. These fascist hordes in flyover country are blocking it, are dangerous. This guy Mark Luziati, who was I was Facebook friends with, he called unvaccinated people plague rats. Like, okay, first of all, New York City, 70%, and I think it's close to the same nationwide. 70% of all African Americans are not vaccinated. They're vaccine hesitant. Why? This is not because they don't have access to it, because they don't want to. And you could criticize why, whether it's a good decision or not, but the fact remains between 70 and 80% of all Black people in the US choose not to be vaccinated. Why? And Mark Luziati called him plague rats. His wife is African American. His wife is Black. He lives in the Chicago area. I mean, this is weird. Does his wife know he's a racist? I mean, so there's weird pile-ons, anti-worker. In New York State, they're firing 72,000 healthcare workers. Okay, they're firing. And people were cheering this on. I say, there's no way this isn't anti-worker. Firing 72,000 people for any reason is an assault on the working class, no matter how you look at it. Even if you think they should. Now, they're healthcare workers who have seen COVID firsthand up close, and they're not stupid people. They have medical training. The doctors often are not required to be vaxxed. The politicians, the administration, the hospital administrations, it's the lower level peons, it's the working class, and they have a scientific training. They know. They maybe have some reason to be a little hesitant. They're all QAnon. 72,000 Trump supporters were fired. No, I doubt most of these people were Trump supporters either. New York State is a very Democratic Party state. Okay, so there was this, I have another Facebook friend who I haven't really interacted with. Seems like a generally nice person, a trans person, who's now a member of the PSL. She was just briefly a member of Socialist Alternative, but she quickly left it. She lives as an academic in Salt Lake City, Utah. She was raised as a Mormon and she broke away from it, very traumatized by it. You can tell it's really had a devastating effect on her and her partner. She broke out of the Mormon church. She's an academic. She's a member of the PSL. She was saying like months ago, they're to fire all these healthcare workers who, polls show that something like 2/3 of all healthcare workers did not want to get vaccinated. And she was openly saying, they ought to fire these people. She wanted the media to impose strict censorship. I think against any alternate opinions. Like, shit, does the PSL know she has these weird fascist anti-worker? I get where she's coming from. She was traumatized by her environment. She's in also a deeply conservative right-wing state, right-wing environment. So she sees herself as up against it. I kind of get where she's coming from, but she just should take a more broader perspective. I was appalled at some of her posts. I didn't call her out. I just let her be. But that's kind of the general prevailing mentality. Now, I posted something. I was building up, getting a little upset. I knew it was kind of coming to a collision with I could sense the growing narratives on Facebook, on Leftbook, the growing narratives. I posted this thing, the corruption. I forget, I posted some article, the corruption in the pharmaceutical industry, like both Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson had literally billion-dollar settlements. Something like 10,000 women have uterine cancer because of Johnson & Johnson. And we know the FDA is horrifically corrupt. Like, can we fucking trust these people? And okay, a couple of people reshared it. Actually, I got a fair number of likes, but some people started piling on. And I didn't really know, to be honest, where I was going with posting that. It was kind of my posting that was literally the beginning of the end of my time on Leftbook. I could sense. And it was about time to leave and go out with a bang. So I posted this thing, and a couple of people started piling on more and more. A friend of mine, or now a former friend, who is a middle school teacher in Brooklyn, New York, who I personally know. I considered a personal friend. We've hung out. I haven't seen her in over a year, but we've spoken on the phone. We've texted each other. We were somewhat close. She was part of the left opposition socialist alternative. I know she has a temper, but she's on Leftbook, but she stopped posting for about 6 or 7 months. She'd very rarely post something. I kind of felt bad. I kind of missed her posts. Then also my posts, for some reason, brought her back out of the blue. And we've gotten this really long thread, went on for a couple of days. I defend my position. I put a lot of research into it. I mentioned this meta-analysis showing ivermectin was safe. a meta-analysis of 63 clinical trials encompassing something like 7,000 people. And it showed ivermectin was safe. It's widely used in India, Namibia, so many other places. And these people just wouldn't take no for an answer. It's just pile on. And, oh, they're not really, you're lying about how many people in this clinical, people, this pile on. It was surrealistic. It was just bizarre. And I felt bad. These were people who were like personal friends. Someone else, Terry Berry, who's usually in Terry Berry's or IMT organizer in Phoenix, Arizona. She used to like me. She actually wanted me to move to Arizona. I'm not a member of the IMT. I doubt I joined it, but she invited me to come to Phoenix to move to, and I halfway thought about it. She joined this thread. She got really pissed at me. She said, Caitlin, I used to respect you, but when you posted the thing about Jimmy Dore, I thought that was pretty weird. And now with this, I'm just disgusted. So she unfriended me. I felt bad. Someone who used to look up to me and respect me. I felt bad. This person, school teacher in Brooklyn, it got really, really heated. And I know she unfriended me. So, okay. So I was emotionally worked up. I mean, it's disturbing that, this guy, Mark Liziotti, he was a member of chairman of the Socialist Party in Florida. He made some really blunders and he was honest about it. He moved to Chicago. He was a frequent poster. He had some insight. He worked for a company which developed software for visually handicapped people. And seems like a really cool, nice guy. His politics, I might say, a type of soft Pabloite. Like he was a Trotskyist. He was in the Gasama Project. He was a Trotskyist kind. He's not a Trotskyist exactly. And he has some insight. He agreed with me about Trump and Biden. He really thought that Trump was a lesser evil, not Biden. And he agreed with me about the Capitol riot, but he wouldn't really back me up. He was like quiet about it, but we were kind of on the same page about a lot of things. But he was dogmatic in his own way, super, super dogmatic. I kind of support animal rights. Like I'm opposed to factory farming and horrible treatment of animals. Mark, one thread, he just talked about how much he enjoys eating bacon, like it's disgusting. And he's kind of dogmatic, and it's what he regards as conspiracy theories. Like he said, Mark was a gatekeeper. He said, I'll make fun of anyone who reposts anything from the Mint Press News. And he mentioned a couple of like Natural News or whatever, who are weird, who aren't so weird, but Mint Press News has a good reputation. Some people unfairly call it a conspiracy site. It isn't. I mean, as prize-winning journalist, many people right there also write for Consortium, which is a well-respected leftist investigative news thing. So Mark was like this weird kind of gatekeeper. I kind of agreed with him. He had some insight to a sense, but he was like super against any quote conspiracy theories. And we know the ruling class is doing this shit all the time. As far as I know, he stayed out of the big fight Marxist discussion group, but he sent me this message and he said, oh, I guess you believe that the moon landings are fake too and that the Jews control the world. You're a fascist now. Too bad. Goodbye. Like, what the hell? Like, what the fuck? I mean, Mark has known me for like, I knew him from the Rev Left Forum. He was a Shagitz Guevara, he was the name. I've known him from the Rev Left Forum. We know each other like 12, maybe 50, close to 15 something years. Online, I never met him in real life, but one of these people I would have liked to have met. But he blocked me. Okay, I was like really rattled. I was like fuck Leftbook. I mean, Max Blumenthal said, there are people on the left who agree with him. He's not a small fringe right-wing ideology. Max Blumenthal, CJ Hopkins, Nico House. There are growing numbers of people on the radical Marxist or semi-Marxist left who agree with me. I mean, what's happening? We're prepping, like the vaccine passports are really pretty scary in some ways. New York, the racist. Black people can't go to most places. That's a deep, dark secret, not just Trump supporters, but Black people can't go to restaurants, can't go to gyms. Seriously, what is this, a new Jim Crow segregation? And these mandates have no scientific, they don't make a safer workplace. People who are vaccinated carry the same viral load as people who are unvaccinated. Seriously, the mandates have no scientific basis before them. And to make it even more weird, under Trump, the Democratic leaders, Biden, Kamala Harris, Pelosi, everyone else, Chuck Schumer, they were vaccine. They said, I'm not going to take the vaccines. I don't believe in mandates or vaccine passports. No, no, no. Under Trump. Now, when they're in power, they're big. Joe Rogan got a lot of shit. It was hysterical. Jimmy Dore had an episode on it that when Biden supposedly got the booster shot, it was staged. I seriously doubt they gave him any shots. Chance of killing him. I don't think they gave Biden any shots, but it was staged. It was so we're in this like performative cult. And so now COVID is real. COVID is a health emergency. Yeah. The way they're dealing with it is just utterly insane. These restrictions on our freedom, lockdown, social control, attacks on the working class. And Max Blumenthal talked about possibly the Great Reset. He was referring to Whitney Webb. He called out Whitney Webb, who's done some amazing research on this. And I know people are going to call me a crazy conspiracy theorist. I don't give a fuck. Really, I don't give a fuck. I'm just so, this is the way it is. And so I'm kind of like divorcing myself from Leftbook. There are some cool people still on the cult. Now, the final denouement for me was again on the Marxist discussion group. Someone who I like, who I maybe won't entirely agree with, but I do really like on several levels. Jazz musician who moved to California, who I like this person a great deal. He posted something in a French group. Loot Ouvrier, a French Trotskyist group. I thought they were Lamberts. They're not the Lamberts, but Loot Ouvrier actually opposes the vaccine mandates and the vaccine passports. And a few other groups in France and Italy do as well. And pile on how stupid they were. And this guy who posted stayed out of it, but people were, they're reactionary. They got reactionary ideas. I said, thank Marx that someone on the radical left finally has a good take on this. I was being like, fuck you to these gatekeepers. I was so a bunch of people called me out. I didn't really stick around for a pile on. Doug Green, who I interviewed, who I kind of liked, he interviews he's also really dogmatic. Doug Green blocked me. About 5 or 6 people blocked me. I'm this horrible anti-vaxxer. And I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but so and then anyway, the final episode of work a couple of days ago, nobody was around. I was checking Facebook on my phone briefly, and I posted something maybe 2 weeks ago. Max Blumenthal interview with C.J. Hopkins, who's a playwright, seems to have a Marxist background, American leftist playwright, lives in Berlin. And I posted something. If anyone, I don't remember what I said, but I said Max Blumenthal is the best take on this. If anyone gives a laugh, posts a laugh react, I'm going to block them. So Ian Scott Horst, who I interviewed and I kind of liked, he posted laugh reacts on the entire thing. I didn't block him, but like he was being a little nasty there. I said, fuck you. I said, well, hey, it's not the first time a Maoist, I don't diss Maoist, but it's not the first time a Maoist was anti-worker. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. I don't know, but I was like, so one more thing. There was this guy, Phil Rockstro, who's a writer, New York City writer, poet, interesting guy. He's into Jungian, he's kind of a Marxist. He's into Jungian psychology, Rilke, and writes some good stuff. He was kind of an essayist and a frequent poster. He has his own little, like a following. And he moved to Munich, Germany with his wife and his son. And he posted very poetical stuff. He was really good. Last couple of years, call out the corruption of Hillary Clinton, wrote some really good stuff. He called out Bernie, the phoniness of Bernie Sanders and the Democratic leaders. And he seemed like he had some really good takes. I largely aligned with him. Then the Capitol riot, he seemed to change. He really thought it was a coup. I could sense in the late Trump period, he was getting all nervous. And he was one of the people who thought it was a coup. And he was really scared about it. And the fascists were about to have a fact. He thought we were about to have a fascist takeover. And there were debates on his threads. I was honestly surprised to hear him say this. He's the last guy who would go into this, but yeah. And finally, he really strongly supports the vaccine mandates and the passports. I posted something I mentioned on his thread that, 72,000 workers are being fired in New York City. He said, well, that's good. They shouldn't have been working there. Like, what? Like what? So Phil Rockstro was the last person I thought would become a shitlib. But he is. He's a shit. He's a total shitlib. I felt bad. He disintegrated, politically disintegrated, and even his writing style is a lot different. I could have something snapped in him. His writing style is a lot different. Maybe it was COVID. Maybe it was what something snapped. His writing style was he was very nasty. I liked him, but he was always kind of nasty and argumentative. I largely agreed with him, but he's nasty and argumentative. Now he's not nasty and argumentative because he knows he could be wrong. He's not. But anyway, compare Phil Rockstro with C.J. Hopkins, they're also Americans, they're leftist, and they live in Germany. Hopkins, I don't know, Eli's a novelist and a playwright, lives in Berlin. I respect C.J. Hopkins more than I do Phil Rockstro. Well, anyway, yeah, so I almost left Facebook. I'm probably going to deactivate my account as soon as I figure out how to. I'll have a smaller account. I'll keep it smaller, keep in touch with some people. Anyway, another controversial video here. If you like my content, please like and subscribe, and don't hate me too much. Don't hate me because I'm beautiful. Thank you.